Hey there, and welcome back to More Security in 10 Minutes, where we discuss security issues that relate to us and our everyday lives as we're more and more connected these days. Today we're going to talk about privacy. So, privacy, obviously, a big concern for all of us as we surf the web. Knowing what we release to the world, what we allow people to understand about us and learn about us, is an ongoing challenge. And one of the big challenges that we see these days is just being able to track who tracks us online. Going about 20 years ago or so, in the early 2000s, I worked for a company and we developed marketing software, and it was really early stuff. We wrote some stuff that tracked whether someone opened an email, or wrote some stuff that it tracked a URL when someone clicked on it. So we're able to get some really good information about who opened an email, who looked at an offer, and this was opt-in, all the up and up emails. But there's a lot of ways that people can use these against you. Even today in the phishing world, that's a big challenge where people are understanding that you've opened the page, you're clicking on a link, and now they have more information about you. And we want to be able to maintain that security so that we own that, not somebody is stealing that from us. But what we're going to talk about today is more where the world goes with the marketing information. So I'm sure we've all gone to a online store, searched for a product, and that product seems to suddenly come up in all of the ads that we see over the next few days. Maybe we bought it, maybe we didn't buy it, but what's happening there is there are tools and there are ways for companies to know what we've looked at, and then as we visit other sites, that marketing information just gets reiterated and reiterated. Quite often, what the marketing people say is it takes 5 to 10 impressions for someone to go buy something. We want to see it, hear about it, and as that process goes on, the buy button gets closer and closer to us. But how do they do that? So let's take a look at some stuff that with respect of how people are tracking information. So if we look here, so we've got privacy.net up on screen here, and this is sort of a page talking about cookies. So cookies, very tasty, but essentially what these are crumbs that we leave as we move around the internet. These are little pieces of information that our browser can store as we visit a site. Quite often cookies are good. If we look at what different types of cookies here, so they've got session cookies. So if you understand how a web server works, every transaction, every time you post something to the web server and get something back, that is an individual conversation. It may look and feel like you're visiting the site over time and things sort of keep going with you, but there are session cookies that are being stored and being sent back and forth between you and the server for it to understand what you did last, so it knows what to do next. So that's all stored in a session cookie. There's lots of different ways that those are stored, and we can go into that in another video. We also have persistence cookies for third-party or first-party information. So the page might store information about us. So we come back to the site, maybe some certain forms are refilled. Maybe we're going to go through a multi-page form filling process, and that information gets stored in cookies until we actually submit it to the web server as one big chunk of data. There's a bunch of different ways that we can store these. And then there's third-party cookies. So third-party cookies are typically ad-based cookies, not necessarily, but quite often they're ad-based cookies. And if we look here, the Guardian has the list of the top big ones. I guess this is according to some Alexa searches. And these are the big ones out here. Back when I was doing email marketing, DoubleClick was a company that we did a lot of work with, and they essentially build a online presence profile of you as you visit the site. Same thing with Facebook and Google, because that's very, very marketable information that they can build up as you visit different sites. They understand what you might be interested in, even if you don't know you're interested in it yet. And those cookies are stored. And so if we look at these cookies, I'm just going to refresh the page so that we get new versions of cookies. And if I open my developer tools, I can actually see information about the cookies that are stored. So we have cookies here. So if I click on privacy.net, these are all the different cookies that are that are stored on my machine. And you can see there's an expiry here. So the expiry is today and a certain time, right? And where they're valid and whether they're HTTP or secure, right? So there's several different tags that can be associated with them. But you can see there's a whole bunch here. So what privacy.net is actually showing is a bunch of different cookies that go beyond their own site. They're showing you different kinds of cookies that are available that might be coming from other parties. So a lot of these ones here aren't necessarily ones that are related just to this site. If we go to a regular site, we probably would see a much smaller subset of these. The other way we can store information about our browser session is actually through the local storage. So in HTML5, we have the ability to store this information. But what's changing now with this information is people are finding ways to squash this. So I can actually go here. I've got this remove cookies. If I click this and I go back and look at my cookie list is actually going to be empty for this particular site. So I've removed all those extra old cookies for that site. You see none of these have anything to do with my current session, right? So this information can be easily wiped. So what's happening now is people are using the secure conversation. So when we connect here with an HTTPS connection, we actually do a handshake with the web server in order to establish the proper capabilities that my client browser can do. And there's some back and forth that goes on. So the first time I do that, it's going to establish this connection, and then it actually has something called TLS session resumption ability now. So I can actually store all that conversation information back just down to a session that's stored. And so what this paper actually talks about here is how the session TLS resumption process can actually be used as a means to market and track my history, because the information is being stored just like it would be of my regular browser, and understands who I am, and then it can hand that off. So as I visit a site that has maybe a Google or a DoubleClick or an Amazon ad or something like that on it, as that session handshake happens, that resumption process can be tracked. Now, we want to do this because it actually speeds up the SSL handshake, and the page load time is significantly improved. The downside is this is another way for them to track us. So how can we minimize this? Well, there's several ways we can minimize this. We can we can go real hardcore, and we can use the Tor Onion network. So the Tor network is a network built by the US Navy to hide its spies online, but it actually was published out to the world so everybody can use it. So their spies are hidden in plain sight. But essentially what happens is you proxy your connection into the Tor network, and it bounces around, and the traffic exits these Tor nodes, and there's no connection between the session that gets created between that Tor exit node and the web server, and the Tor exit process or the Tor process and you. So that's obfuscated and hidden. So the web server can't see you and doesn't necessarily know that you visited these 9 different sites. It just sees a bunch of connections that are seemingly unrelated, except to the fact that they're coming from this Tor exit node. So that's one way to do it. That's pretty hardcore. The second way we can do this is just by maintaining the length of time that we store that session resumption information. By default, you're supposed to store the browsers are supposed to store it for about 24 hours. That's what the request was. What we're seeing now, and some of the challenges that we're having the privacy side of things, is that session resumption information is being stored for longer periods of time, so upwards of 48 hours and higher in some browsers. And also in some browsers are taking the reverse effect and saying, let's store it for less time. Yes, there'll be some impact that when you visit a website, maybe it takes an extra dozen maybe an extra second or so to do the handshake, probably significantly less than that. To do the handshake, but by reducing that number, it improves your ability to stay hidden online, and not be tracked online. So there's some browsers that are even down to 30 minutes that handle these sessions. Typically, an SSL session is no longer than 10 minutes, anyways. So that actually probably has very little impact on most sites that you're going to be visiting. So really what we want to do here is just figure a way that we can minimize the amount of time people track us. I mean, it always is scary when we go to a site and we visit, and we look at an ad, and maybe we looked at an ad with somebody else, and now suddenly you're seeing them everywhere on the web, and you're like, I don't want to buy this thing, and suddenly 6 days later it shows up on your doorstep. And so so there's several different ways we can minimize this, but just maintaining that understanding that you are being tracked is an important component of your privacy unto itself. And hopefully these little tips here can help you be a little more secure and inside of 10 minutes. So thanks, and hopefully we meet again in the not too distant future. Thanks very much, and this is Peter for More Secure in 10 Minutes.